You're listening to a 1FM podcast.
Chris, are you there on the phone?
I am, Craig. How are you, mate?
Not too bad. Just to let everyone know, Chris Newman and I Chris did a lot of lights with a band called Dear Enemy many years ago, and they just had a 35th get-together yesterday.
Scary, isn't it?
It certainly is. 35 years ago. That's scary, Chris.
Yeah, exactly right.
And you left Dear Enemy and you ended up going to John Farnham.
With a few steps in between, yeah. Did a lot of years with Mondo Rock and Russell Morris and a few of the other, men at work. A few of those names. Ended up with John. Probably about 35 years ago now.
Okay. So what's it like doing lights for a band like John Farnham?
Oh, look, it was always amazing. It started off pretty small. It started off just prior to Whispering Jack being released, so he was doing a few solo shows, and he wasn't as big as obviously he became. So then Whispering Jack got released, and we were sort of all putting around doing pub gigs like everyone did in those days, and then suddenly the album took off, and then suddenly we're doing entertainment centres, and then what was going to be a 6-week tour turned into 6 months, turned into 36 years. So it was just things just happened around so quickly that you didn't even know what you were doing at the time. And luckily for all of us that were involved in at the time, John stuck with us all. He didn't a lot of big bands will take off and start using more experienced people or people from overseas to do their shows, and luckily John stuck with everyone that was with him at the time, so it's pretty much been a core crew for that long.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No.
So when people go and see, let's say, John Farnham or any artist, and you've designed the lighting show,
yep.
You obviously have a budget for what you're allowed to spend for lighting.
Yep.
And is it usually up to you, or does the artist have a say in what they like and what they don't want? And
John's pretty footloose. John's got a fair bit of confidence these days in what we do around him, so he might have an idea. A couple of times he'll have an idea for a theme of a show or how he'd like to see it progressing, but the nuts and bolts and what it's going to look like, is pretty much up to me as a production designer and a lighting designer, that sort of thing. So there's a few other acts I've done where they're fairly specific about the look and theme and what colours they do like and don't like, but I've never had that from John at all. He'll come up with a big picture of something he'd like, or the way the show should open or the way the show should finish or whatever, but that's about the extent of it. And normally then it's a process of, drafts 1 through 27 and throwing them back at management and suppliers until you come up with a number that everyone's happy with and the size of production that suits the tour that's going out. Yeah.
Okay, just with your lighting desk, how many channels does it have?
Well, my console of choice is a Grand MA, so they're a German-built console that's sort of pretty much a go-to for everybody these days.
Certainly is.
So control channel-wise, there'd be, let's see, so it's probably 12 outputs at 512 channels per output, which is what the DMX range is. So it's about 6,000 or plus control channels. And they're assuming that a moving light may use anywhere between 15 and 60 channels. That's basically how you get your control. So that could be anything from 20 lights to 500 lights, basically.
Gone are the days of putting a few Par 64s and 56s and Lecos up.
And just plugging them into 240-volt channels and running off a little desk. Exactly right.
That's it. Yeah, that was many years ago.
Yeah, so that's the technology, leaps and bounds. As soon as moving lights appeared on the in the spec, and which started years ago in America, that sort of started increasing the requirements for.
Well, Genesis started that, didn't they?
Control it all. Yeah, it was Genesis. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, they owned every moving light.
Yeah.
At one stage.
With a company called Verilot that they started way back when. Yeah.
That's it. When we all played fullback for Jerusalem.
Correct. Yes.
So you wouldn't swap your gigging for the world, would you?
If I had the choice again to do it all again, I would do it exactly the same way.
Yeah, exactly the same.
I fell into it by accident, just out of uni, and had no idea which way I was going, and finished uni early, didn't finish my course, and sort of fell into a labouring job, and then started going to see a band and bought a van and started carting your gear around. It turned into a 3-piece, turned into a 5-piece, turned into, just kept going, and I didn't stop, basically. So that's what I've done for 40 years now. Yeah, 42 years probably. Yeah. So, and I I've never done anything else. It's always been concert lighting or corporate events, which took off, a lot of years ago as well.
That's true too, yep.
When music sort of took a bit of a sidestep to DJs and stuff in pubs, and that all started happening. So I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't do it any differently. I've probably seen the world. It's paid for that. It's paid for the life. It's family. It's been great. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, as you know, I've got my youngest doing it as well.
No, I know. Well, I do a fair bit of shows with him. Craig's son Darren is
that's correct.
Production sort of organiser and lighting crew chief, etc., for a company called Power Audio. And a lot of the previous years we've been doing things like Red Hot Summer tours and things like that, where the company Craig works with, is the main supplier. So Craig's always the guy usually on site when I get there at 11 o'clock at night. Darren's the guy I get on site when I get there at 11 o'clock at night to start focusing. He's the guy that's standing there with his eyes wide open,
Are you right? This is what you want? Things like that.
Yeah, and he's already been there since 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's still there with me at 2 o'clock in the morning as I'm finishing up, getting ready for a show the next day. So,
and there's a lot involved in these things, so...
There's a lot of stuff people don't understand or don't, can't blame them. It's not what they do, but that's what goes on behind the scenes, and, people assume that the stuff they see at the show just lives at the venue instead of the 12 trucks out the back that's just...
That's exactly right. And the people to move it all too.
That's right, exactly right. So, there's a lot involved, a lot of pre-work. I can spend 2 months designing a rig and a show for John sort of thing, that just sucks up time, and then pre-programming in my office with a console and a 3D visualizer, so I don't have to have all the stuff set up in real terms. That sort of stuff.
Different, yeah. Do you have a favourite song with John?
Look, I've got to admit that I didn't think You're the Voice was going to be a hit. How's that? Some of the older stuff I really love. Some of the early albums is, that he doesn't do very often anymore. He doesn't do many of those songs off some of the early albums anymore. And some of those early songs, and even some of his solo albums, the last Uncovered album he did before Whispering Jack, there's some killer songs on those, but he just doesn't do them anymore.
No. Okay. Well, thank you for the talk. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but it's been many years since we've seen each other, but all in the industry, because Chris was with Dear Enemy and then left Dear Enemy and I took over. And, we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a good ride, I must say.
I wouldn't swap it for the world, and both boys didn't want to follow me in car racing or lighting, and what are they doing? They're both doing it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So, thank you so much, Chris.
No, cheers, mate.
And we will catch up somewhere. And this is John Farnham for Barbara Church up the road. She's a dairy farmer. They milk that many cows, it's unbelievable. They're fantastic people. But this is Reasons, and it's live. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, mate. See you.
You've been listening to a 1FM podcast.